A young woman calls
My
911,
parents have been
her
shot.
voice trembling as she reports that armed intruders had broken into her family's home, shot her parents, and somehow left her unharmed. The police rushed to the scene of what appeared to be a tragic home invasion in an affluent Toronto suburb. But what they discovered would expose one of the most shocking cases of family betrayal in Canadian criminal history. November 8, 2010. Markham, Ontario. A quiet Canadian suburb that looked like the perfect place to raise a family. But inside one house, a night of horror unfolded. A mother was fatally shot, a father was left permanently blinded, and their daughter, the one they trusted most, was not the victim, but the mastermind. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It was a planned attack orchestrated by Jennifer Pan, someone who hid years of lies behind a perfect smile. And today, even 15 years later, her case continues to shake Canada's justice system. Stay with me as we uncover how a promising daughter became the architect of her own parents' downfall, the shocking trial that followed, and the stunning Supreme Court decision that gave this story an unexpected twist in 2025. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because cases like this remind us that sometimes the most dangerous predators hide behind the most innocent faces. In April 2025, the Supreme Court of Canada made a decision that brought this case back into the spotlight. But to understand why, we need to go back to the beginning, to the story of a family's American dream that became their ultimate nightmare. The story began decades before Jennifer Pan was born, with two young Vietnamese refugees who dared to dream of a better life. Hann Pan and Bick Ha Pan were ethnic Chinese immigrants who had fled Vietnam as part of the boat people exodus that followed the Vietnam War. They had witnessed firsthand what it meant to lose everything and start over in a foreign land. Hann arrived in Canada in 1979 as a refugee, carrying nothing but hope and an unshakable determination to succeed. Bick followed the same path of displacement and uncertainty before finding her way to Toronto. When they met and married, they established their new life in Scarborough, one of Toronto's most diverse neighborhoods where many immigrants had built their futures. Their early years were marked by the grinding struggle that defined so many immigrant experiences. Hann found work as a tool and die maker at Magna International, an automotive parts manufacturer in Aurora. Bick took a position on the production line, manufacturing car components in the same facility. Day after day, they performed demanding physical labor, but they never lost sight of their ultimate goal, to provide their children with opportunities they themselves had never possessed. Jennifer entered the world on June 17, 1986, followed by her younger brother Felix 3 years later. For Hann and Bick, these children represented the culmination of every sacrifice they had made, every hardship they had endured since leaving Vietnam. Their offspring did not merely survive in Canada, they thrived, excelled, and achieved the kind of success that justified every difficult choice they had made. By 2004, the family's perseverance had paid tangible dividends. Hann and Bick purchased a house with a 2-car garage on a quiet residential street in Markham, a prosperous suburb of Toronto known for its large Asian population and excellent schools. This wasn't just a home, it was a symbol of everything they had accomplished through sheer determination and backbreaking work. The house in Markham's Unionville neighborhood represented more than financial success. It embodied the realization of the classic immigrant dream. The manicured lawns, safe streets, and proximity to top-tier educational institutions provided the perfect environment for raising children who would surpass their parents' achievements in every conceivable way. But with this success came an intensity of expectation that ultimately proved suffocating. Hann and Bick had not sacrificed everything simply to raise ordinary children. They expected excellence, and they structured their family life around ensuring that excellence was achieved, no matter what the cost. Jennifer's childhood unfolded under a regime of expectations so demanding that her friends would later describe her upbringing as oppressive. Hann Pan had transformed from refugee to what Jennifer's high school friend Karen K. Ho called the classic tiger dad, while Bick served as his reluctant accomplice in maintaining their household's atmosphere of relentless achievement. At age 12, Jennifer was enrolled in music theory and harmony lessons, her schedule packed with activities designed to cultivate excellence. She spent most days of the week at figure skating classes, training with the dedication expected of someone pursuing Olympic dreams. For years, she glided across the ice with the focused intensity that her parents demanded, her athletic aspirations representing their hopes for her future glory. However, destiny intervened when Jennifer suffered a knee ligament tear that effectively ended her competitive skating career. The injury shattered not just her personal Olympic aspirations but also her parents' vision of their daughter standing atop an international podium. Yet rather than allowing this setback to diminish their expectations, Hann and Bick simply redirected their ambitions toward Jennifer's academic performance. At Mary Ward Catholic Secondary School, Jennifer played flute in the school band, another accomplishment that fitted neatly into her parents' blueprint for success. But the music, like everything else in her life, existed within a framework of rigid control that left no room for typical teenage experiences. The Pans collected Jennifer from school every single day, monitoring her activities with an intensity that bordered on surveillance. They prohibited dating entirely, viewing romantic relationships as dangerous distractions from academic achievement. School dances were forbidden, social gatherings were out of the question, and any activity that didn't directly contribute to her educational advancement was considered a waste of time. Even during the years when Jennifer was supposedly attending university, her parents maintained these restrictions. At 22 years old, she had never experienced a single night out at a club, never consumed alcohol socially, never visited a friend's cottage for a weekend getaway, and never taken a vacation without her family's direct supervision. Friends who knew Jennifer described this upbringing as suffocating and recognized the psychological pressure she faced daily. While her peers were developing independence and exploring their identities through typical adolescent experiences, Jennifer remained trapped in a carefully controlled environment where every moment was scheduled and every decision was made by her parents. The academic pressure intensified as Jennifer progressed through high school. Despite her parents' unwavering expectations of straight-A performance, her grades remained disappointingly average, typically falling in the 70% range except for music where she excelled. This gap between expectation and reality forced Jennifer to make a choice that defined the rest of her life. Rather than confronting the reality of her academic performance, she chose deception, forging report cards to make her parents believe she was earning the straight A's they demanded. The fabrication worked initially, allowing Jennifer to maintain her parents' approval while avoiding the devastating conversation about her actual academic performance. But lies have a way of demanding ever more elaborate lies, and Jennifer's deception was about to spiral beyond her control. When Jennifer failed calculus class during her final year of high school, the consequences extended far beyond a simple failing grade. Ryerson University, now known as Toronto Metropolitan University, had offered her early admission based on her supposed academic record. When her actual grades were revealed, the university rescinded their offer, leaving Jennifer facing a crisis that threatened to expose her entire fabricated academic history. Unable to bear the thought of being perceived as a failure by her parents, Jennifer made another fateful choice. Instead of confessing her academic struggles and working toward legitimate solutions, she decided to expand her deception exponentially. She began pretending to attend university while actually spending her days in coffee shops, teaching piano lessons to earn money, and working in restaurants. The logistics of maintaining this charade required extraordinary creativity and dedication. Jennifer purchased second-hand textbooks related to pharmacology, the field she claimed to be studying at the University of Toronto. She spent hours watching educational videos and creating elaborate notebooks filled with fake class notes that she could show her parents as proof of her academic engagement. Her performance was so convincing that her parents never suspected the truth. Jennifer told them she had received scholarships to support her education, explaining why she didn't need their financial assistance for tuition. She crafted stories about professors, classmates, and coursework with such detail that her parents had no reason to question her success. To further support her elaborate deception, Jennifer requested permission to stay near campus with a friend during weekdays. Her parents, believing this arrangement would help their daughter focus on her studies, agreed to the request. What they didn't know was that the friend was actually Daniel Chikwang Wong, Jennifer's secret boyfriend whom she had met in high school. Wong, of mixed Chinese and Filipino ancestry, lived in Ajax and represented everything Jennifer's parents would have found objectionable in a potential partner. He had transferred to Cardinal Carter Academy in North York due to poor academic performance, was actively involved in selling marijuana, and worked managing a Boston pizza restaurant, hardly the type of person Hann and Bick would have approved of for their daughter. Jennifer's elaborate deception began to unravel when her parents' natural suspicions were aroused by small inconsistencies in her story. While she claimed to volunteer at the hospital for sick children as part of her university program, she never had the identification badge or uniform that such a position would require. Bick Pan's maternal instincts told her something wasn't right with her daughter's explanation. Determined to uncover the truth, she decided to follow Jennifer to work one day, expecting to see her daughter entering the prestigious medical facility. Instead, what she discovered shattered the entire foundation of trust their family had been built upon. The confrontation that followed was explosive. Hann Pan's rage upon learning that his daughter had been lying about everything, her university attendance, her volunteer work, her academic achievements, was so intense that he wanted to throw Jennifer out of the house immediately. Only Bick's intervention prevented him from disowning their daughter completely. The discovery forced Jennifer to face the reality that she had never completed high school. Under her parents' watchful supervision, she began the process of finishing her secondary education, with Hann and Bick monitoring her progress closely. They encouraged her to apply to university legitimately this time, hoping to salvage their daughter's future despite her massive betrayal. However, the consequences of Jennifer's deception extended beyond academic matters. Her parents implemented even more severe restrictions on her activities, forbidding any contact with Daniel Wong. According to Jennifer, her parents' objection to Wong stemmed from his mixed ethnic background, though this reasoning may have been another fabrication designed to deflect from Wong's questionable character and lifestyle choices. Jennifer was permitted to leave the house only for her piano teaching job, with every other aspect of her life subject to intense parental scrutiny. The trust that had been broken by her academic lies was never fully restored, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and control that made Jennifer feel increasingly trapped in her own home. Despite these restrictions, Jennifer and Wong maintained secret contact, their forbidden relationship taking on the intensity that often accompanies prohibited love affairs. The clandestine nature of their communication only strengthened Jennifer's resentment toward her parents, whom she now viewed not as concerned guardians but as oppressive jailers preventing her from living her authentic life. By 2009, the strain of conducting a relationship under such secretive circumstances had begun to affect Wong's commitment. He grew weary of the constant need for discretion and the inability to build a normal relationship with Jennifer due to her parents' restrictions. The practical limitations of their situation ultimately led Wong to make a decision that triggered the next phase of Jennifer's descent into deception. When Daniel Wong ended their relationship to pursue another woman, Jennifer's world collapsed in ways that extended far beyond typical heartbreak. Unable to accept that her forbidden romance had concluded, she embarked on a campaign of manipulation designed to win Wong back through increasingly desperate and disturbing means. Jennifer fabricated an elaborate story claiming that men had broken into her home while displaying what appeared to be police badges. According to her fictional account, these intruders had perpetrated a violent assault against her, an accusation so serious that it should have prompted immediate police involvement and medical attention. The fabricated assault story was accompanied by an even more sinister claim that someone had mailed a bullet to her home as a threat. Jennifer presented these alleged crimes as connected events orchestrated by Wong's new girlfriend, attempting to position herself as a victim of persecution rather than accepting that their relationship had simply ended. Wong's response to these claims isn't detailed in the records, but the fact that no police reports were filed and no medical evidence supported Jennifer's allegations suggests he may have recognized these stories as fabrications. However, Jennifer's willingness to concoct such disturbing lies revealed the dangerous psychological territory she had entered in her desperation to manipulate those around her. During this same period, Jennifer remained in contact with Andrew Montemayor, a high school acquaintance who, according to Jennifer's later testimony, had boasted about committing robberies at knife point, though he later denied making such claims. Whether these conversations actually occurred or were another fabrication by Jennifer remains unclear. Through Montemayor, Jennifer met Ricardo Duncan, whom she described as a goth kid with potentially violent capabilities. In what represented a dramatic escalation from fabricating crimes to actually planning them, Jennifer claimed she paid Duncan $1,500 to eliminate her father at his workplace. Duncan's account of their interaction differed significantly from Jennifer's version. He acknowledged that she had given him $200 for a social outing but maintained that he returned the money and refused her request to harm her parents. By spring 2010, Jennifer had reconnected with Daniel Wong, and their renewed relationship became far more dangerous than their original romance. According to police investigations, Jennifer and Wong began developing a plan that represented the ultimate solution to her perceived problems: the elimination of her parents through professional assassination. The couple calculated that Jennifer would inherit approximately $500,000 following her parents' deaths, money that would fund their life together free from parental interference. They planned to hire a professional hitman for $10,000, viewing the expense as an investment in their future happiness and financial security. Wong's connections in Toronto's criminal underworld provided the network necessary to transform their murderous fantasy into reality. He introduced Jennifer to Lenford Roy Crawford, a Jamaican-born man with ties to individuals willing to commit violence for money. Wong also provided Jennifer with a SIM card and iPhone that would allow her to communicate with these criminals without using her regular phone, demonstrating a level of premeditation and operational security planning. Crawford served as an intermediary in the conspiracy, connecting Jennifer with Eric Sean "Sniper" Carty from Rexdale. Carty, who would later be convicted of an unrelated murder committed in 2009, brought additional criminal contacts to the conspiracy, including Montreal-born David Milvaganam, who was identified by prosecutors as one of the actual hitmen. The network of conspirators that emerged from these connections represented a dangerous alliance between Jennifer's desperate personal motivations and the criminal capabilities of individuals willing to commit murder for financial gain. Each participant brought specific skills and resources to the plot, creating a conspiracy that was proved to be devastatingly effective. The planning phase revealed Jennifer's transformation from a young woman trapped by parental expectations into someone capable of orchestrating her own family's destruction. Her willingness to provide detailed information about her parents' routines, the layout of their home, and the timing that would ensure both targets were present demonstrated a level of cold calculation that shocked even experienced investigators. As November 2010 approached, all the elements of the conspiracy were in place. The hitmen had been selected, the payment arrangements had been established, and Jennifer had provided all the information necessary for the attack to succeed. The only remaining step was choosing the date to carry out their heinous crime. November 8, 2010, began as an ordinary evening in the Pan household on Markham's quiet residential street. Hann and Bick were settling into their evening routine, unaware that their daughter had already set in motion the events that would destroy their family forever. Jennifer executed her role in the conspiracy with chilling precision. When she went to bed that night, she deliberately unlocked the front door of their family home, providing the hitmen with easy access to their targets. She then placed a phone call to David Milvaganam, likely confirming that both parents were home and the assassination could proceed as planned. Shortly after Jennifer's call, Milvaganam arrived at the house accompanied by two other armed individuals whose identities were never definitively established during the subsequent trial. The prosecution never determined exactly who the other two hitmen were, though Eric Carty testified that he served as the driver and was involved in selecting the participants and planning the attack. After entering through the front door that Jennifer had unlocked, the three armed men demanded money and ransacked the main bedroom to create the appearance of a robbery. However, their primary objective was never theft, it was the elimination of Hann and Bick Ha Pan according to their daughter's detailed instructions. The attackers forced both parents into the basement, where they were shot multiple times at close range. Bick Ha Pan died from her injuries, while Hann survived despite his severe wounds. The brutality of the attack demonstrated the professional nature of the hitmen Jennifer had hired through her network of criminal contacts. Following the shootings, the attackers took $2,000 from Jennifer herself, maintaining the fiction that she was also a victim of this supposed home invasion. Jennifer claimed that the men tied her up before leaving. After the attackers departed, Jennifer called 911, reporting the incident as a home invasion and robbery. Her performance during this call was later scrutinized by investigators who found her demeanor inconsistent with someone who had just witnessed her parents' brutal attack by strangers. Han Pan was rushed first to Markham Stouffville Hospital, then transferred by air ambulance to the trauma unit at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto. His survival was crucial to the investigation, as his testimony would provide eyewitness evidence that contradicted Jennifer's carefully constructed narrative. The initial police response to the Pan home invasion focused on what appeared to be a wealthy family targeted by opportunistic criminals. The Markham suburb where the Pans lived was generally considered safe, making this type of violent home invasion unusual but not unprecedented in the Greater Toronto area. However, experienced investigators quickly noticed troubling inconsistencies in the crime scene and Jennifer's account of the events. Despite the apparent robbery motive, numerous valuable items remained untouched throughout the house. Electronics, jewelry, and other easily portable valuables that professional criminals would typically prioritize were left behind. More suspicious was the fact that Jennifer had emerged from the attack completely unharmed while both her parents had been shot multiple times. Home invasion robberies typically involve either eliminating all witnesses or ensuring that surviving victims cannot provide detailed descriptions. Leaving Jennifer untouched and capable of calling 911 seemed tactically nonsensical for experienced criminals. The physical evidence of Jennifer's restraints also raised questions. She claimed that the attackers had tied her up, yet she had somehow managed to dial 911 with bound hands. The mechanics of this seemed implausible to investigators familiar with how criminals typically restrain victims. The evening after the attack, police conducted their first formal interview with Jennifer. Her responses during this session contained minor inconsistencies and strange details that experienced interrogators recognized as potential indicators of deception. However, these initial suspicions weren't sufficient to justify immediate arrest. The investigation took a dramatic turn when Han Pan awakened from his coma and provided his account of the attack. His version of events included a crucial detail that completely contradicted Jennifer's story. He recalled seeing Jennifer speaking to one of the attackers in what he described as a friendly and familiar manner. This eyewitness testimony from the surviving victim transformed the case from a home invasion investigation into a potential conspiracy involving Jennifer herself. Han's observation suggested that his daughter knew at least one of the attackers, making her claimed victimization highly suspect. Armed with this new information, investigators requested a third interview with Jennifer on November 22, 2010. This time, they were prepared with specific questions about the inconsistencies in her story and the contradictory testimony from her surviving father. The interrogating officer, William Bill Getz, employed the Reed technique during this crucial interview, using psychological pressure and strategic deceptions to encourage Jennifer to confess. He falsely claimed to have computer software that could analyze statements for deception and mentioned satellite technology capable of monitoring movements within buildings. These deceptive tactics were completely legal under Canadian law, which permits police to lie about evidence and investigative techniques during interrogations. The psychological pressure created by these fictional capabilities ultimately proved effective in breaking down Jennifer's resistance to telling the truth. Under the intense psychological pressure of Detective Getz's interrogation, Jennifer's carefully constructed story began to collapse. Faced with claims about advanced detection technology and confronted with the inconsistencies between her account and her father's testimony, she finally abandoned her home invasion narrative. Jennifer's confession represented a desperate attempt to maintain some control over her situation while acknowledging her involvement in the conspiracy. She admitted that she had indeed hired the killers, but claimed that their original target was supposed to be herself, not her parents. According to this revised version, she had arranged her own assassination, but the plan had gone tragically wrong. This new story was almost as implausible as her original home invasion claim. Jennifer couldn't adequately explain why professional hitmen would deviate from their instructions and attack her parents instead of their intended target. The logistics of her supposed suicide by hitman plan made no practical sense when examined closely. Nevertheless, Her confession provided investigators with the breakthrough they needed to pursue the other participants in the conspiracy. Jennifer's admission that she had hired killers gave police the foundation for expanding their investigation into the network of criminals who had actually carried out the attack. The arrest of the co-conspirators proceeded systematically over the following months. David Milvaginam was apprehended at Jane Finch Mall in North York during April 2011, suggesting that investigators had been tracking his movements and activities since Jennifer's confession months earlier. Eric Hardy was arrested several days later at Maplehurst Correctional Complex in Milton, Ontario, where he was already incarcerated on unrelated charges. His existing presence in the correctional system simplified the arrest process while providing additional evidence of his criminal lifestyle. Daniel Wong was arrested on April 26 at his workplace, bringing Jennifer's former boyfriend and co-conspirator into custody. His arrest effectively ended the romantic relationship that had motivated much of the conspiracy, though both he and Jennifer would spend the rest of their lives dealing with the consequences of their murderous plan. Lenford Roy Crawford was the final suspect arrested, taken into custody in Brampton the following month. His role as an intermediary in the conspiracy made his testimony potentially valuable for prosecution, though he was ultimately be convicted alongside the other participants. During this period, Jennifer remained incarcerated at Central East Correctional Centre in Lindsay, Ontario, awaiting trial. The facility's maximum security environment provided a stark contrast to the comfortable suburban home where she had lived while planning her parents' elimination. The completion of the arrests meant that all identified participants in the conspiracy were in custody, allowing prosecutors to begin building their case for what would become one of Canada's most closely watched murder trials. The evidence collected during the investigation would prove overwhelming, but the legal proceedings would still require nearly 4 years to complete. The trial of Jennifer Pan and her accomplices commenced in March 2014 in Newmarket, Ontario, creating intense media attention and public fascination with the case. The proceedings stretched over 10 months, making it one of the longest and most complex murder trials in recent Canadian legal history. All defendants pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. Their defense teams faced the challenging task of countering extensive physical evidence, digital communications, and eyewitness testimony that painted a clear picture of premeditated assassination. York Regional Police presented exhaustive evidence tracking the movements and communications of all participants in the conspiracy. Cell phone records revealed over 100 text messages exchanged between Jennifer and Daniel Wong during the 6 hours immediately preceding the attack, demonstrating their ongoing coordination as the murder approached. The prosecution emphasized the atypical nature of the supposed home invasion, highlighting the numerous inconsistencies that had first aroused investigators' suspicions. The fact that Jennifer remained unharmed, unblindfolded, and present during the entire attack while both parents were shot multiple times defied logical explanation for a random robbery. Jennifer's emotional presentation during her confession was analyzed and presented to the jury, with prosecutors noting her apparent lack of genuine grief or trauma when describing the attack on her parents. Her obsession with Wong and her calculated approach to discussing the conspiracy revealed a personality capable of orchestrating family annihilation. The trial included testimony from over 50 witnesses and examination of more than 200 exhibits, creating a comprehensive picture of the conspiracy from its inception through its tragic conclusion. Forensic evidence, digital communications, and eyewitness accounts combined to create an overwhelming case for conviction. Han Pan's testimony proved particularly powerful, as the surviving victim described recognizing his daughter's friendly interaction with one of the attackers. His account directly contradicted Jennifer's claims of victimization and established her clear involvement in the conspiracy. The jury sequestration lasted 4 days while deliberating this complex case, with jurors later describing the emotional toll of reviewing graphic crime scene photographs and listening to detailed testimony about the brutal attack. Foreman Patrick Fleming recalled living with daily thoughts of the crime throughout the trial period. When the verdicts were announced, Jennifer, Wong, Milvaginam, and Crawford were all found guilty on all charges. The courtroom erupted with screams from the defendants and their families as the reality of life imprisonment settled over those who had participated in this devastating conspiracy. Each received the mandatory sentence for first-degree murder in Canada, life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The sentences reflected the court's recognition that this crime represented the ultimate betrayal of family trust combined with cold-blooded premeditation. Eric Carty's case proceeded separately due to his lawyer's illness, resulting in a declared mistrial during the main proceedings. He ultimately received an 18-year sentence after pleading guilty to conspiring to commit murder, with eligibility for parole after 9 years. However, Carty died in prison in 2018 before completing his sentence. The legal saga of Jennifer Pan's case continued long after the initial convictions, with significant developments occurring as recently as 2025. In May 2023, the Court of Appeal for Ontario granted an appeal by Jennifer and her 3 co-conspirators specifically regarding their first-degree murder convictions. The appellate court determined that the trial judge had incorrectly instructed the jury by limiting their consideration to only 2 scenarios that would justify first-degree murder convictions. The appeal succeeded on grounds that the jury should have been permitted to consider lesser charges including second-degree murder and manslaughter. Importantly, the Court of Appeal upheld the attempted murder convictions related to Hann Pan's shooting, meaning that aspect of the case remained settled. However, the first-degree murder conviction for Bick Pan's death would require a new trial with different jury instructions. The Supreme Court of Canada confirmed the order for new first-degree murder trials in April 2025, sustaining the appellate court's decision in a 7-2 majority opinion. Chief Justice Richard Wagner wrote that no evidence presented at trial contradicted the possibility that defendants had intended to kill only Hann Pan rather than both parents. The Supreme Court's reasoning focused on the fact that there was strong evidence supporting the Crown's theory that both parents were targets, but there was no undisputed evidence contradicting the idea that the plan was only to kill the father. This legal technicality opened the door for potential conviction on lesser charges. 2 justices dissented from the majority opinion, arguing that there was insufficient evidence to support any theory that defendants intended to kill only Hann. They noted that the crime occurred only after Jennifer confirmed that Bick was home, and both parents were led downstairs and covered with blankets before being shot. The practical implications of this legal victory for Jennifer and her co-conspirators remain significant but limited. While they will face new trials on the first-degree murder charge, their attempted murder convictions ensure they will remain incarcerated regardless of the new trial outcomes. Jennifer Pan was sentenced in 2015 to life in prison without parole for 25 years, and even if the new trial results in conviction on lesser charges, she will still serve substantial prison time for her role in orchestrating her mother's death and her father's attempted murder. The retrial offers Jennifer and her accomplices a chance at potentially reduced sentences, but it cannot erase the fundamental reality of their guilt in planning and executing an attack that destroyed multiple families and shocked the Canadian public. The impact of Jennifer Pan's crimes extended far beyond the immediate victims to devastate multiple families across cultural and geographic boundaries. Bick Ha Pan was laid to rest in November 19, 2010 at Ogden Chapel in Scarborough, with funeral arrangements that Jennifer herself had been asked to coordinate before her arrest. While Hann remained hospitalized and unable to attend his wife's service due to his severe injuries. According to Chinese customs that the family observed, Bick's father's funeral was held prior to hers, respecting traditional practices about elder family members. Hann Pan's survival came at tremendous personal cost. The attack left him permanently blinded and dealing with ongoing physical and psychological trauma from the assault orchestrated by his own daughter. His testimony during the trial demonstrated remarkable courage in facing the person who had arranged his attempted elimination. Jennifer's brother Felix requested and received a restraining order prohibiting any future contact between himself and his sister. This legal barrier reflected the complete breakdown of family relationships caused by Jennifer's actions and his recognition that she posed an ongoing threat to surviving family members. As of the most recent reports, the co-conspirators remain scattered across Canada's federal prison system. Jennifer was incarcerated at Grand Valley Institution for Women in Kitchener, while Wong was held at Collins Bay Institution in Kingston. Milvaganam was serving his sentence at Atlantic Institution in New Brunswick, and Crawford was at Kent Institution in British Columbia. Eric Hardy, who had requested transfer to a federal prison in Western or Atlantic Canada, was ultimately moved to Kent Institution, where he died in his cell on April 26, 2018. His death meant that one participant in the conspiracy would never face the full consequences of his actions. The case left lasting trauma not just for the immediate families but also for participants in the legal proceedings. Jury foreman Patrick Fleming later advocated for mental health support for jurors, describing the lasting psychological impact of reviewing graphic evidence and rendering verdicts in such emotionally devastating cases. With the Supreme Court's recent decision ordering new trials, this case continues to evolve through Canada's legal system, ensuring that the story of Jennifer Pan's ultimate betrayal remains relevant in contemporary discussions about justice, family dynamics, and the consequences of choosing violence over honesty. The Jennifer Pan case forced Canadians to confront uncomfortable truths about family expectations, hidden lives, and the darkest lengths some people will go to escape control. 15 years later, the wounds have not healed. A mother is gone, a father lives with lasting scars, and a daughter sits in prison, awaiting another chance in court. It's a story that asks, how far can pressure, lies, and obsession push someone before they break? And in Jennifer Pan's case, was freedom worth the cost of everything she destroyed? Thank you for watching. If you found this case compelling, subscribe for more true crime stories told with depth and detail. What do you think justice should look like in the Jennifer Pan case now? Let me know in the comments. See you in the next one. Till then, stay safe, stay informed.